Hey friends, it's RSKT, and welcome back to another episode of the AE Modular Video Library, the series that lets you take a look at the wide range of modules available for the AE Modular system. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the delay module, the delay LoFi type module. We'll be giving a general overview before diving into some demo patches towards the end. Before we begin, AE Modular is a small but ever-growing system, so if you find this video useful, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, or consider supporting me on Patreon. The videos for this series can be found in a playlist on my channel. It can be viewed in any order. Green thumbnails for the official Tangible Waves modules, and pink thumbnails are used to cover third-party modules. With all of that said, let's now take a look at the delay module. So the delay module is really cool, and the lo-fi type that it has to its name definitely rings true. It is a kind of lo-fi delay. It gets a little bit sort of muffled and crunchy the harder you push it, but I genuinely love the sound that I get out of this thing. At the very top, we've got an input for our sound, and then followed underneath that, we have a CV input, which lets us CV modulate the delay time. We've also got two additional inputs that we can put audio through. I should point out though that not only can you put audio through this thing, but it can be really fun to mix CV signals in this as well. In terms of outputs, we've got two general outputs. We've also got an output for just the dry sound and an output for just the wet sound, followed by 4 mults. In terms of controls, we have a knob for the delay time, the feedback, and a dry-wet control. So I'm just going to patch up the first output here to our mixer, and let's feed a sound source into this thing. Now, for anybody watching this channel, you might have known by now that one of my favorite things to do is to actually mix the Castle synth through this delay. I find that I can get really cool sounds and textures out of this, and given the fact that it's just got 6 predefined synthesis modes in it, they all sound really cool and funky going into this delay module. So I'll just take the output of this first one. And I'll just turn the dry wet off for now, just so that we can hear the actual sound. Great. So this particular engine sounds like this. Very basic, but we can introduce a wave shape, which we can barely hear while this knob is turned down for the oscillator time. So yeah, pretty cool sounds. Let's play around with the dry wet control. And we'll increase the feedback a fair bit. Now when we sweep this, pretty neat. So you might hear that the higher I push this dry wet control, if we just go all the way wet, it's kind of muffled. If we push the feedback up, it gets more muffled. These are really cool sci-fi sounds that we're getting right now, and I absolutely love it. Now, I've not tried this before, but given that there's a second oscillator type down here, let's just feed that to another one of the inputs. We could even change synthesis modes here. And we could even set this up, I mean, we're getting away from the delay module now, but we could set up some slow LFOs to do a lot of this knob turning for us. Maybe do one more thing creative before we move on to the next part of the video, because otherwise I'm going to get lost in this patch. yeah, I mean, there's your ambient album made. I mean, it's a little atonal, but yeah, I could totally see myself using that sound for something. So I guess another cool thing to demonstrate is I've got an LFO set up down here with a sawtooth wave. So we can actually use that to control the the delay time. Let's make it a bit slower. I can make this really slow. Or we could switch this to be a triangle wave instead. So it rises and falls nicely. Yeah, I mean, that's sick. I think it goes without saying that I absolutely love the delay module on this thing. Now, you could do a bunch of different creative things with this. For example, taking the dry output, routing it to a filter, and taking the wet output and routing it to a second filter and high passing it. There's lots of different sort of creative ways that you can split up the delayed signal and do really neat things like that. What we could try is, I'm just going to unpatch all of this. Let's just plug a standard square wave into the WASP filter. Great, get a bit of resonance in there. Let's try merging in some LFO. So I've got a square wave LFO down here. And let's just take the wet output of this, drop the feedback down a bit, and we'll whack it into the CV input on our filter. Now let's take another LFO and we'll add that in as well. So we can hear that little clicking sound. And then maybe we could use something like the 2-auto, mess around with the delay time. And we'll just loop something here. So the main reason that I'm doing this with an oscillator is so that we can hear those little blips and blops. We've almost essentially made our own crackle noise output that you could get from the noise oscillator down here. Now, this is particularly useful because we could take this LFO or this delayed LFO, and let's plug it into the clock input of our Euclid grid. And we can see that now it's moving quite odd and randomly. This can lead to generating some really cool rhythms. For example, we might want to take the bass drum output on the BD55. Might be a little bit more audible on the rim shot. Again, this all just leads to creating really, really neat sort of textured sounds that we can then use later on for something else. Let's whack this one into an attenuator and we'll invert it. So it's an attenuverter. We could try whacking it into the bass module. That's pretty neat. We could then maybe whack this one into a logic module and just hook up the Euclid grid playing over here. And then convert that to a hi-hat rhythm. So yeah, bit of a weird sort of longish process, but I really enjoy the odd sort of randomness and textured sound that we can get out of doing things like this. The main reason I've used it with these drum modules here is because I just didn't want to patch anything up to VCAs and hook up envelopes and everything. But when you're thinking about how these are being used as triggers, and you could get them to sort of trigger things randomly as opening up your envelopes and whatnot for other things like the module or the sampler module. So I guess that was a bit of a long-winded way of saying don't be afraid to experiment with the delay module to do things that you normally wouldn't use a delay for. Yes, it's a really good delay audio processor, but mixing in CVs or other audio signals and then messing around with the delay time can yield really cool and unexpected results. And I think that's what Modular is all about. Hey, just jumping in from the future here because I quickly want to talk about how I'm using the delay module these days, because obviously I've got a much bigger rack now and I shot that video sort of in the past, whereas now I've got all of these new modules and set up. So basically I've got a mix console down here and it actually has inputs for effects sends. So what you'll see is that I'm actually running an effects send into the delay module, and then that runs back into the effects return. And I'm just duplicating the signal with the mult here so that it can be sort of stereo. This way, whenever I've got something running into my mix console, I can now just twist one of these knobs in this row and it will send that signal to the delay module, meaning that I can sort of affect the amount of delay that's happening to all of my other sounds coming into here, and I get a lot more control over it. I definitely prefer working this way a lot because obviously since we've got two effects sends, it means that I can also send one out into my Zoya over here, which I've usually got running reverb. So that way I get reverb and delay that I can sort of distribute throughout my entire rack. And it's just really, really fun to work that way. Anyways, just thought I would throw that one in there for good measure because yeah, that's just how I'm using it these days. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the delay module for now, and I hope that you enjoyed the demo projects that are about to play. Hit the like if you like, and if you don't, tell me why. Please subscribe, check me out on Patreon, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.